tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for 20 to 30 minutes on the STEP of the week, followed by a discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, a Conscious Contact speaker group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of November the...
February.
I was pushing it, by the way. And I'm testing it. At the Monday night at 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and STEP group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker, all the way from Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania. He made it through the snow, he made it through the wind, and we really welcome him. His name is Joe, and there will be sharing experience on or after that. Okay.
How you doing? I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So it's the fifth step, right? We're going to talk about
We're
the
going
fifth
to do the fifth step, yeah.
Okay. So I have some experience with the fifth step. I recently just did another fifth step, which is probably like my 8th or 9th time doing one. Been through the steps 4 times in total. I guess you could say this is the 5th go around. September 7th, 2017 is when I got sober. So I've done those steps in the period between then and now. And the first time I did a fifth step, the very first time I did a fifth step, I wasn't completely honest. The second time I did a fifth step, I wasn't completely honest. And by the third time that I did a fifth step, I wasn't completely honest. I had to ask myself why that was. And the truth was that I didn't trust the people that I had been doing it with. Now, the first person, I didn't know enough to know that I had to be as thorough as I should have been the first time. I thought I was. I thought I was thorough enough. So I did that, and everything was okay. But the sponsor that I had, I felt the need to get a new sponsor. And the second sponsor I had, when we did the fifth step, again, I thought it was enough. I didn't really think I was keeping things off of it. But then he went and told someone some things that I had told him on my fifth step. So I had to get another sponsor. When I got that sponsor, I was more honest than I was the first 2 times around, but still not completely honest. And that's when I had to ask myself, why haven't you been completely honest? Because I felt good for a while. I felt free. I felt lighter. I felt like I had done the thing. You know what I mean? I've been through all the steps at that point. And the truth of it was, I didn't trust him. It's not even that I didn't trust him to keep his mouth shut. I more or less did. I didn't trust him not to judge me. So I omitted things that I shouldn't have. And as time went on, the fact that I did that, I felt like I had done something wrong, and it was starting to get to me. And the more that it got to me, the more I started looking for answers like, well, why couldn't you have just said what you had to have said, So I had to get a new sponsor, and I got a new sponsor, and we sat down, and I think the very first time we sat down, I said, listen, there's like 2 or 3 things that I have to say to you that if I don't say them right now, I'm never going to say them, and we're just going to keep, I'm just going to be stuck in this cycle that I'm in. And I told him immediately, and then we went on to do, more. Because every time I've been through the steps, whoever I go through the steps with, I let them dictate more or less how it's going to look. You know what I mean? If I come to you and I ask you for help, then I'm going to accept your help, and I'm going to do what you say to do. So we go through the steps, So that's why I've been through them. And things went well, like it was good to say what I had to say. It was good to get it off my chest. But then I got another sponsor. I've had a lot of sponsors. And nothing went wrong there. It's just more recently I felt the need to go back over those 2 things that I said to somebody one time in a 10-second period and then never spoke of again. So now I have another sponsor. I seem to have bad luck with sponsors, but maybe, we're in each other's lives at the right times or something. I don't know. So we went over that. And, it was like as hard as it was the first time around to admit these things. I don't know this guy. Actually, I do know him a little bit, which almost makes it worse. Because now if I know you a little bit, we have like a little bit of a history. Now I kind of care a little bit more what you think. You know what I mean? You've seen me around, you've heard me speak, like we've been in each other's company, and now I have to admit things to you that I don't want to admit to anyone, you know. But it was good. It was probably the best fifth step I had done as far as like how I felt afterwards. And honesty in the fifth step is critical. You know, honesty in the fourth step is critical because if I can't admit it to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to admit it to anyone else. And I lie to myself more than I do anyone else because it makes it so much easier to live my life when I believe the lies that I tell. Not because I'm even trying to get anyone else like to believe them, but because I need to believe them. If I don't believe that there's anything wrong with me and I could just walk through my life feeling like, you know, there is no issue to address that alleviates me from having to address anything. So I lie to myself and I tell myself I don't have an issue. There is no issue. I have no problem. I don't have a substance problem. I'm not an alcoholic. I ignore these things and I ignore them and I ignore them and I ignore them until they become so big I can't ignore them any longer. They affect the lives of the people around me and they affect me. So to be honest with myself is really like critical. And that has to take place in the fourth step because even as I'm writing a fourth step, there's things in there I'm like, I could probably just leave this out. I've talked about this before. I don't need to talk about this again. And that's when I know I need to put it down. So being honest with yourself is critical in the fourth step because you're going to talk yourself out of talking about things that need to be talked about. And sometimes it even just comes down to a point of laziness where it's like, I just don't feel like having to talk about this, you know, but it's critical. The fifth step, you got to be with somebody that you trust enough to do these things with, you know what I mean? And I don't know who in here has been through this, who hasn't, but you could try to get like an estimation of someone, you know, when you're thinking about asking them to sponsor you by the things that they say, the way that they act. I don't know how to put it. It's almost like a sixth sense. Like you just got to kind of feel them out and see if this person seems to be doing the shit that they're saying they do. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people can say nice things and put on a good presentation, but maybe, you know, maybe they're not doing what they say they do. I don't know. Get comfortable with somebody when you want to do the fifth step. Comfortable enough that you can be honest with them. Because if you're not going to be honest with them, it's really pointless. You know, you might be all right for a little while, but that's about it. You ain't going to be good forever. And then you're just going to have to do what I did and find someone else and do it all over again. And maybe that's the path that you have to take. I guess that's the path I did have to take because I took it. You know, and I guess that's what God saw fit for me to do. But I've done thorough fifth steps, and the one that I most recently did was very thorough, and it was beneficial. You know, like it says, we can't take stock of an inventory. We can't take inventory. How does it go?
A business that doesn't take.
A business that doesn't take inventory cannot, you know, identify unsaleable goods and things of that nature. So it's like we're doing this for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we get into it and we're doing this for a very specific reason, and we can't move forward until we have done it. So if you're going to do it thoroughly. Usually, like, sorry, I felt like I was at work for a second. Like I run groups, and it's like I ask if anyone has experience with the fifth step, but I guess I can't do that here. I guess I'll just go on to say that, you know, this has been something that I've adopted into my life early on. You know, I get sober, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I get into the steps. I work the steps. Time has passed and I continue to work the steps. And even though I may do things incorrectly, I'm lazy, I'm selfish, and I'm self-centered, and I want to take the easy route every chance I get, it still brings me back to having to do the steps because it's the only place that I find any kind of peace. It's the only time that I find any kind of salvation. And, you know, I'm at a point now personally where I'm in like a valley, and, you know, things aren't going as well as I'd like for them to go spiritually because I'm not doing what I have to do spiritually. But once I do, things will get better, and I realize that. So it's really just up to me. The point that I'm trying to make is the steps are so essential to live a happy life, at least in my experience and in my opinion. You know, without them, when I'm out there just doing whatever it is that I want to do, I'm getting the results that I expect to get. You know, if you work harder, you'll make more money. If you make more money, you could buy more things. So you're going to look around and your bank account's going to be bigger and you're going to have more items, but you're not going to be any happier. At least I'm not. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that to speak to the fact that, like, it's so essential to get into the steps and work the steps and continue to live through the steps, you know? And I think the fifth step to me is probably like the second biggest one. I would say the ninth step for me is the biggest one, but this isn't a ninth step meeting. But the fifth step is definitely where, everything gets laid out on the field and you're walking away from it kind of unsure as to what's going to take place next. But in order for anything else to take place, that has to take place first. And I would like highly, highly suggest that if you haven't done it, or if you're in the process of doing it, or if you're thinking about getting into the steps, period, just do it. It's not going to get any easier. And I used to tell people something that somebody said to me, and it's all bullshit, where it's like, when you get to that point, you'll be ready. You're not going to be ready. You're not going to be ready in the sense that like nothing in your head is going to say, okay, now I'm ready. But you'll be ready in the sense that God's going to put you in a position that you need to be in to do what you need to do. So even if you think you're not ready, you're going to be ready because God's going to make that make it to be that you're ready. But psychologically, there's not going to be a point where you're going to say to yourself, "Oh, great, I'm ready now. I can do it now." You just have to do it, man. Sit down, write things down on a piece of paper. Once you have the things written down on a piece of paper, sit across from someone and say the things out loud. It sounds really, really simple and easy because it is really simple and easy. But it's also really difficult to overcome the pride, the prejudice, the self-doubt, my ego, my pride, what I think of me, what I think you're going to think of me, all those things. But it has to be done because the alternative is not doing it. And what comes with not doing it is to continue to suffer like we suffer. So I don't really have much else to say about the fifth step necessarily.
No, Joe, thank you. It's the first time I'm meeting Joe, and I think it's probably the first time you're meeting a lot of people here, right? So what brought you here? Like, we're not tonight, I'm just talking, what brought you to the program? Maybe hear a little bit about where you came from.
Pain and suffering. Pain and suffering is what brought me to the program, nothing else. That was it. 22 years of drinking and other things. Complete dependence on alcohol. I would say within months of picking up alcohol at a young age. And then just an inability to put it down. And when I did put it down, here's the thing, like, honestly, what brought me here is alcoholism, not alcohol. The fact of the matter is that I'm an incredibly defective person, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And I have absolutely no answer for that. The only answer I ever found was alcohol and other substances. So I found that answer early on. I got a death grip on that answer, and I never put it down. I'm not a person that's relapsed a bunch of times because I've never relapsed. I've never tried to get sober. I saw no point in it. The problem was when I wanted to get sober, when I finally wanted to, I found that I couldn't. So 22 years of drinking, the last 6 of which were completely out of my hands. I had no power whatsoever to stop. And every day I wanted to stop and I couldn't stop. So I went to rehab once, didn't go well at all. Not because they didn't do their job, but because I had no idea what I was doing. And I was acting like an animal, in the treatment center. Went back to rehab a second time shortly thereafter. And that time I was so beaten down and submissive that I was willing to do anything anyone said to do because I had no idea what else to do. So I got into rehab, completed a 4-week stay, got out, went to a recovery house, a place I've never heard of before. I didn't know a recovery house was a thing. Before going into rehab, someone told me to go to a recovery house after rehab. So I go into rehab, I go to the recovery house. In the recovery house, they're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I started going to meetings. I would say within the first 4 days, I had a sponsor and a home group. And like I said, I did a 5th step with that sponsor, ended up getting a new one. It turns out he was the owner of the house. So when I would call him up and tell him that I want to drink, he didn't have answers necessarily that I was looking for. And the answer wasn't, what do I do because I want to drink? It was like, what do I do because I'm in so much pain? He didn't have the answer, so I got another sponsor. But, it was also the fact that he did own the house, so it was kind of awkward sometimes calling him up and saying, hey, listen, I'm about to get mangled right now. hopefully I don't. See you soon. So it was kind of like, it made it awkward. So I felt a need to get another one, and I did. But yeah, man, alcoholism, the fact that I'm ill-equipped to handle everything and anything, and that when I am sober, I am in a lot of pain, and when you take the solution that I have away from me, which is alcohol, I need another solution because, I was talking about this with my sponsor. He and I agree, and we have similar past. I wasn't a bad person when I drank. I was a bad person that happened to drink. So drinking was just something that I did, but I was defective in any way you could imagine. I was a bad person. I did bad things. Not because I was intoxicated, but because I was a bad person. Drinking was just something else that I did while being a bad person. So I don't want to be a bad person anymore, and I don't want to be in pain anymore. But I can't keep drinking, which is the one thing that I turn to in times of need. So I was introduced to the steps, and they said, this is what you need to do. So I got into the steps, and 1, 2, and 3 for me were pretty simple. I mean, life was unmanageable. There was absolutely no question about that. And the powerlessness that I experienced for 6 years of the end, trying to stop and not being able to, that was easy to spot too. I always believed in God. I just didn't believe that God was going to do me any favors, but I believed in God. So there was no one there telling me, like, you have to believe in God. I'm already there. Believing that God could restore me to sanity. I was so beaten down, and like I said, beaten into submission, that it was like, okay, yeah, maybe you can. So there's really no issue there. And I was in so much pain, writhing in pain, that writing a 4-step and the idea of like writing these things down and talking about them, because I'm a person that's avoided therapy my entire life. I don't believe I didn't believe in that type of a thing. It seemed like a welcome chance to say the things that were ripping me to pieces inside. So I did that. 6 and 7 weren't hard. Like I said, I already believe in God, and I have absolutely no issue pointing out my own defects. I mean, they're countless, infinite, defects. Not an issue there. Asking God to take them from me, I can't. So there was no issue there either. Like I said, 9 was the most impactful step for me. 8, not difficult either. Who did I harm? I got a whole list of people. In 9, I go out and I make direct amends. That's where things really became impactful, and that's when my life really changed. Like the 5th step, once I got done the 5th step, I felt a difference. Once I got done the 9th step, I felt changed. I felt changed. I had to approach people that I had no intentions of ever seeing again for the rest of my life. People that I had not seen for over a decade. Mending relationships that I didn't think existed any longer. But I did it. And again, I did it out of desperation. The gift of desperation. The pain became great enough that I made the change. Everyone says it, and it's absolutely true. My mother used to tell me, if you're hungry enough, you'll eat. I found out later in life that she was right. You know what I mean? But you have to be in a position where if you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. Literally in that position, and then you will eat anything. And this is what this was like. The pain becomes so great that I had to make a change. It was uncontrollable. And then 10, 11, and 12, it's like looking at where I've been selfish, dishonest, fearful, and resentful. It's usually not that difficult to identify because I feel those things constantly. I'm constantly resentful, constantly selfish, dishonest, and fearful. Constantly. The hard part is to put it down on paper and to talk about it. That I am terrible at. But it's not hard to do. Prayer and meditation. I used to be really good with prayer, not good with meditation. Now I'm not good with either, but I'm trying. And this is what I'm saying. I'm in the valley. I'll hit the peaks when I start doing the things that bring you to the peaks. In 12, spreading the message and trying to help out another alcoholic. Again, valleys and peaks. Right now I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm suffering the consequences because of it. I'm not making meetings. I'm not sponsoring people like I should. And I could tell you all the reasons why and this, that, and the other thing, but it's all bullshit. It's just me being lazy, selfish, and self-centered. And I'm feeling the pain because of it. I no longer want to feel the pain, which is why I drove here. Zach asked me this afternoon, I guess he was supposed to be speaking to you guys, if I could. I said, yeah. here we are, because I'm trying to do other than what I've been doing. I realize that I need to make the change in my life yet again, and that the steps are only going to work for me if I actually work the steps in my day-to-day life and practice the principles in all of my affairs, and turn to God for help, because I don't have any help. If you leave it to me, this is as good as I'm going to get. Barely maintaining is the best I can accomplish without God's help and without employing, the steps and practicing the principles. Maintenance is the best thing I could achieve. That's about it on my own. So I don't know. I think
It's good, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at you. I hate to get on the bad side of you, man. So. Jeez. We got a good group tonight. I think it's the biggest that I've been able to pull off here. I think we're 18 or 19 people. I think it's a result of Joe coming here. So comes to the point of the meeting where we all would like to share. It says limit yourselves to 3 minutes, but please, let's hear it from the heart. If you feel like drinking, or if you have had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We're in a church or on a spiritual journey. So now, I'm going to open it up to the group.